Hey family, welcome back to She Speaks Podcast. This is your host, LaDeshia Wright. I pray that something is said today that blesses you. If so, please like and share. Now, let's get into this episode. Hey family, I am back for another episode. I'm excited. I don't know, like usual, how this is gonna go, but I believe that I have a clear subject, a clear title, and we're just going to go with it and we're going to see how it goes. I'm having to tell myself that perfection is not the goal, just get it out there. And I am freshly into my year 32, maybe about 2 weeks in somewhere. So I'm a fresh 2 week old, 32-year-old young woman. And I am going to just be honest. Last year, 2025, which we're just 5 days into this new year of 2026, I have experienced more of having to let go than I think I ever have in my life. And I had to willingly do it. And a lot of times I didn't necessarily understand why. Some instances I did. And in this process that I have been in, I wanna say maybe I'm coming out of that process, I really don't know, but walking it out, I understood every single time that it was necessary for me to come out of whatever relationship, that I was having to take a step back, that I was having to move out of the way. Some instances, I was having to have, those hard conversations just to say, "This isn't where I can be." Whether it be for a season, whether it be didn't have the details. And sometimes the Lord would allow for me to know the reasoning, and then other times I would not. But the sum of it all is that I was growing. I was growing. And I want to say that it didn't necessarily have anything to do with anybody else. That's partially true, partially not. Because the truth of the matter is, there gets to a certain level in life where everybody's not going to be able to go with you. And oftentimes I think, we have this idea in our minds that certain people it's just automatic. They're going all the way. Whatever all the way is, even if we don't know where we're going to end up in life. Like myself, I've always had this knowing that there was just greater in me. Whether I saw it or not, I had any idea. What I was going to amount to, I had no idea. But my ideas, just who I have been internally, I knew that there was more to me than what I was living in my present day and time. And I would speak those things out. I would speak about the ministry. I would speak about when I was traveling. I would speak about when I had my own travel bus. I don't have it yet, but I have been speaking those things for years to be able to say, oh, I know that that woman is going to be somebody that goes with me. And today I am living my life. And there are at least two in particular, and I know they will not be a part of the journey that I thought that they would be a part of. And one, it's maybe like the last 2 or 3 years. And it dawned on me in that time. It was like, no, this is a separation, relate people, we drift, we go different ways. Lives takes us on different journeys and destinies. And so I wasn't sad, but I understood. I had been saying that for years. And at that point, I hadn't even saw, the things that I've saw manifest in my life today. I hadn't walked into different avenues and started to see some shifts and some changes. I hadn't grown or matured into the version of the woman that I am today. And a little bit it's sad. it's sad because we have to let go of our hopes, our dreams, our desires, these plans that we made inside of our heads. We have to let those things go. But this past year, and it feels crazy saying that, but this past year, 2025, I have had to walk away from relationships. And if I be honest, because, I just am, in my honesty, a few years ago, I remember having a conversation with my mom and telling her, there was someone that would be upset about things that I did that didn't concern them. When I would block other people or do certain things, and I remember telling her, I said, I believe the issue that they have with me doing this, that they know the truth of the matter is, if I needed to remove them, they know that I would. And I believed that that was the issue. And I remember her looking at me with shock on her face. Now, with our relationship, there were times where I wouldn't have thought that that would have shocked her. I would have thought that that would have been expected. It should have been something that felt kind of normal with me being honest. But I was very honest. I said, I knew in my spirit, inside of my being, that they knew that it didn't matter how close we were. I was okay removing whoever needed to be removed if it felt like it was necessary. Fast forward, maybe 3 years later down the road, I have had to do that. And when it came to me, when it was time, because it wasn't something that I just walked into, it hurt because there was an emotional tie. But I had that conversation. I had that knowing inside of my being. And so when the time came, it was like the moment has manifested itself. The moment has arrived. And in that past season, it wasn't time yet. But the woman that I had grown to be in this past year in 2025, I knew in my spirit that if I wasn't willing to let go, then I was going to cause myself to miss out on something, because the reality of it was this individual, or these particular individuals, were not going to have access to what was coming in the future. They were not going to have access to the future LaDeshia. And me being me, it felt like I needed to have a conversation. Now, that is not always the case. But under the circumstances, I needed to have a conversation. But not only did I know that I needed to do this, there was a time frame on it. There was a contingency on it. And there was a urgency in my spirit because I didn't have very many days. And in 2025, I found myself that every month I had some kind of instruction. Some of them were, I don't want to say easier, they were all challenging. Some of those challenges caused me to go against what I feared. And it wasn't, and I say none of it was bad, but in one instance of letting go of something, in another one, it was, hey, go walk into that go walk into that, even though you didn't think that you were ready for it, even though you didn't think that you had the right, the enough resources. Go step into that. So on some instances, it was, you need to leave this. You gotta walk away from them. You cannot go back into those same rooms and those territories. um you know you got I had to completely separate myself, and in that moment I wasn't going to see the benefit of it. in the moment, I felt the sting. In the moment, I felt responsible for somebody else's heartaches. And in the moment, I felt responsible for feeling like I was leaving somebody who literally I knew may have given me the shirt off their back. But at the same time, I had to deny LaDeshia, and I had to submit to the Holy Spirit. And one of the conversations was, you don't owe anybody anything. Yes, they blessed you. Yes, they were good to you. Yes, the relationship was beneficial. And I think sometimes those are the harder people, because we're talking about people. Those are the harder people and individuals to walk away from, because in my heart, I was honest, and I was honest with God, and I was like, this hurts because it feels unfair to them. I felt like I was doing damages to somebody who loved me, who was there for me in some of the hardest seasons of my life. But I remember having to weigh the two and say, okay, are you going to stay in a place that you know that you have outgrown, just for the simple fact of you don't want to hurt someone's feelings? Or are you going to deny yourself of the very things that you've been praying for and missing out on things that you don't know are in the future? Which of the two? Are you going to keep putting people above yourself, or are you going to choose to walk into the destiny that was pre-planned for you? And let me just say this. I knew which one I was going to do. Did it hurt? Yes. But I knew I had to choose myself. I had to choose to put me first. I had to choose a better woman than I was in that moment. I had to choose a healthier woman in that moment. I had to choose a wiser woman in that moment. And I had to be okay hurting myself. I had to be okay, telling myself, if I am the villain in somebody's eyes, I'm okay with that. If there is a story about me that says I left them and they don't know why, I have to be okay with that, because I also had to understand that it wasn't my doing and it wasn't my decision. I was obeying what I felt that I knew. And I knew that if I was wrong, then I would know it. But at the same time, if what I felt was right, if I was making the right decision, if I was walking away and I was supposed to walk away, if I was stepping back, if I was taking myself out of those environments and out of those scenarios, and I was staying out of certain atmospheres for long enough, I knew that if I gave it enough time, I was going to know if that was the right decision or not. And guess what, friends? It was the right decision. I know that it was the right decision because I see where I am today. I know that it's the right decision because it was after submitting to change, after submitting to new, after submitting to walking out of places that I had been. I've just grown so much in 12 months. But not just 12 months. I go back to April. I go back to May, when there was some of these hard things that I was having to do, to June, July. It was like for a few months, it was like gradually. And that's the beauty of the Lord, the beauty of the Holy Spirit, the beauty of having a loving and a caring Father, is that I wasn't required to do everything at one time, but it was back to back to back. Because the truth of the matter, it was like, before the end of April, you got to do this. You got to come up out of this. And however I needed to handle it, it didn't matter. It was just a simple fact that I had to make sure that what I was given was done. And I didn't have a lot of time either. It's not like I didn't have a whole month. I may have only had a few days that I was working with, but I began to look for the instructions in the month that I was living in because I had got accustomed. Something is coming up that I am going to have to do. And I began to be eager. I began to anticipate it. I was excited because it was like a slow run. I was sprinting, and I loved how I felt most of all. There was a lightness. I wasn't heavy. I didn't feel burdened. And to be honest, I didn't miss the places or the faces. So here I am in January of 2026, and I don't really talk to a lot of people. I don't really see a lot of people, but in my honesty, and I'm going to be honest because one, I feel like it's a gift to myself. I would be doing myself, and I want to say this to somebody else. I think we do ourselves a disadvantage when we lie for the sake of somebody else's feelings and emotions, because that means we first lied to ourselves. And I have grown to love and value me. And now I'll say this. Sometimes it's just better not to say anything. If you feel like your honesty and your truth is going to hurt somebody's feelings, you don't have to say anything, but silence speaks too. And I say this that I don't miss anywhere that I've walked away from. It may have stung in that moment. It may have felt awkward, especially you think if you're having conversation with somebody daily, or, if you talk to somebody often, especially if it's family, if it's a close friend, somebody that, you're tight with, and you just assume, hey, girl, we gonna be kicking it forever. And one day you get this notion that it's like, I think you need to cut that. And it doesn't, and I'm not talking about toxic relationships. I'm talking about those, they don't feel toxic. I'm talking about the ones where you talk about the Lord, as often as you do, and you do all these things together, and things seem healthy. But you get that notion that nope, that was only temporary. I have been, I'll say, on both sides. And today, I don't even think about where I was. I don't even think about, those that I used to have conversations with. Now I kind of just tell the Lord and say, hey, sometimes I want some company. Sometimes I wish that I had a friend to talk to often, but I look at where I am, and life is changing and transitioning so much to where those moments come up, but they don't last long. And I titled this Clear the Seat. I was going to say cleared the seat like I've already, but we don't clear a seat one time. We don't leave empty seats in our lives, or let's say other people's lives or other places. We don't do that one time. That is a continuation for the rest of our lives. The only thing is sometimes we get up willingly. There are some seats, there are some places that we are in, and we just know this is not best for me. I've outgrown this. I need to leave this. I need to get up from this. So you get out of that seat, and you don't always get to give a notice. When it's life or death, and that can be physically, spiritually, emotionally, psychologically, when it's life or death, you don't have time to give a notice. You just got to bounce before you ain't got no life left in you. And there are other times when you can give a courtesy and say, hey, look, I know I've been sitting here. I know I've been a part of this. I know I've been a willing participant, but I got to move and I got to shift. And just like somebody who moves and they don't take nothing with them, they say, I don't have time. I don't have the capacity to pack. I would rather start over. That's what clear the seat looks like. The seat is evidence that I once resided there. But I, me, myself, and I'm gone. Did I pack? I don't know. Because sometimes the only thing that you can take is yourself. Sometimes the only thing that you can take is the sanity that you have left, is the peace of mind that you got left. And this came to me because for year 32, I didn't plan on doing a whole lot. The only thing that I wanted for my birthday was some time to myself. I am a mother of two girls, and it's me and them girls. And I told the Lord, I said, look, I didn't even have a plan to plan a trip. I didn't have the means or the resources to plan a trip. And then knowing whatever I was going to do, they were more than likely going to be with me anyways. And I learned from the year before that was not a trip. That was not a party. It was not fun because I had to do a lot of fussing when it was supposed to be some kind of vacation. But I just wanted to be in the house by myself. I just wanted some time. I said, give me a full day by myself. And I had the invitation to go and, do something. But y'all, this is where this new era of a woman and my peace and all those things, that is what is most important to me. That's when I saw a change and a shift that kind of surprised me. And I honored it and I honored myself, but I allowed myself to have a conversation because I was invited to do something. And I had some time that fell into my lap, some time to myself. Both of my girls were going to be gone at the same time. And I was going to have at least a day or, at least maybe an evening to myself. And so I was put in this, do I take my time or do I go do this? And at first I debated mentally, but I agreed. I was like, you know what? Maybe it'll be good to get out, be with somebody else, have some communication with another adult. And as I began to try to prepare and, get timelines put into place, I remember sending something out, and it was like, trying to get details because again, this was not my idea. And I realized shortly after that I was going to have to be the one to make the agenda. I was going to have to set the time. I was going to do this. And y'all, it took the fun and the joy out of it for me because I just wanted to show up. I wanted to have this reason. It was like somebody saying, hey, I want to celebrate you. Let's do jot, jot, jot. And for me, it felt like work. And the moment that popped into my head, I said, I cannot afford to keep living like this. I cannot afford to keep being this person in the relationship. I can't afford to allow for this to go on in my life. And to somebody that may not seem like a big thing, but somebody is going to understand. Somebody else is going to relate. And you're going to say, you know what? That just gave you a moment to take a breath and to exhale and to say, you're not crazy. You're not overreacting. You're not doing too much. You're not reading too much. No, there are some of us that if we don't show up and overly extend ourselves, things won't happen. If we don't show up and we don't put it all together or we don't plan or we don't, why? Because you're the strong-minded friend. You're the one that seems grounded and level when half the time that really is not the truth. But because of the way that you're wired and because of the way that you've lived your life, you have learned how to, I'm not going to say put off this false persona, because truth of the matter is those things are true about you. What's not true about you is you don't always want to have to be the one that's responsible for that role. Sometimes the strong friend wants to show up, not because they're weak or vulnerable, but because they want to say, I am free enough. I have people who can hold me. I have people around me who have the capacity to say, I know that you can carry it all, but you don't got to do that with us. And I believe in this transition of my life, the gift that the Lord has been given me is knowing and accepting the fact that I don't have to keep being her all the time. I don't have to keep showing up as strong all the time. I don't have to show up. I don't have to be the one to show up with all the answers. I don't have to be the one to show up with the ideas. I don't have to be the one to show up and put all the puzzle pieces, where they're supposed to be. It's no, I would rather sit by myself. And if I'm going to do something that, there's a group, but where's the group effort? If my spirit has to be drained. So just like me doing this podcast and starting a business or two, trying to figure out how to do all of these things because I know how to do the work. I just don't know how to do this kind of work. If I'm going to be tired and overly exhausted and all these things, I would rather do it knowing that it's just me on the team, because I'm not going to have to try to share the reward with somebody who was okay just watching me do what I did because, oh, she can do it because she is who she is. And so I honored myself for year 32 and I said, you know what? Because I wasn't excited anymore. It took the thrill out. And what it also translated to me, it lets me know I got a foreshadow. And I said, whenever the time comes for me to date, I ain't putting up with the mess that I used to put up with. It's like, if you want me, if you want my time, which is very valuable, I'm very precious. See, I know my value and my worth now when I didn't know it before. But it's like, if you want my time, if you want me to be in your presence and you extend an invitation to me, then you better have more than an invitation. You better have some details. I'm okay with you taking a survey and saying ABC, which one is it going to be? I'm okay with that. But what I'm not okay with is me having to accept an invitation and then I got to put the menu together. I got to put the agenda together. I got to invite the guest. And it's like, wait a minute. If it's a privilege to be around me, then why do I feel like I'm having to pay an extenuating cost? And so I did. I took myself out. I got dressed up and I fixed myself just to go out, just to come back home and put the clothes back in the closet and wash my makeup off for what, like maybe 2 hours. But the thing is, it was a time for me to honor myself and to say, I'm not just going to keep showing up because people say, I miss you. If I could be honest, this is the part where I say sometimes you don't might not need to say anything at all. I don't. I don't concur. It's not equal. It's not mutual. I don't miss nothing. That I've had to walk away from people, but then I walked away from my job in 2025. And, I thought about this the other day too, and it kind of made me laugh, like that unlaughable laugh, like it was funny. It's like, that was, it's funny, but it really ain't funny. Because you'll think about things and it'll make you look at people in a different light, in a different way, because you understand everybody's not happy. Like, they're happy for you to grow, but they're not happy for you to grow because your growth doesn't benefit them anymore. You growing, you no longer being who you were, stops being beneficial for them. And some people don't realize you always were who you were growing to be. you just weren't walking in certain avenues where it affected different areas of your life that they just so happen to be in. And I'll say this, April 2025, I had my book signing in LA, and I'd never flown before. This was completely outside of my norm. But y'all, I was excited. You know, some people thought I would be afraid because it's like, who you going with? By myself, boo? You ain't going with nobody? I don't do nothing else with nobody. So it's like, no, I didn't even if I wanted somebody else to go with me, I don't even think that I would have known of a worthy constituent. Like I really wouldn't, because how I'm set up, my thought process was nobody was in that book writing process with me. Nobody was with me when I was crying writing that book. Nobody was with me when I was, up in the middle of the night and trying to get edits did. Nobody was with me. I was my proofreader. I had to be the one to go through and do. So it was like I didn't feel like anybody else deserved to piggyback. Not the last thing that I needed was support for a book signing. No, that was going to be my time to shine. And I knew there was not going to be anybody to slow me down. I wasn't going to have to wait on nobody. I could come and go as I pleased. And, I found that I'm very adventurous. I don't always get the opportunity to do so, but I like new things. I like trying new things. I like what some people would call challenges, or what they say is, aren't you afraid, to go in places that you've never been? Absolutely not. Because for me, sometimes I feel like that's when I thrive the most, when I'm outside of my norm, when I'm outside of my comfort zone. And I went and I did that, but it was in the preparation for my book signing that, the book had already been out from the year prior, but I kept having words said to me by an individual. And it was just, when you go there, don't come back, don't go all Hollywood. And I didn't understand. I was like, what does that mean? What do you mean don't go all Hollywood? Well, what it really meant was don't go over there and come back new. Don't go over there and come back different. But what he didn't understand is it was already evident that I already changed before LA ever knew my name. I had already changed. I had already been growing. I had already been prospering into a new woman. It was like a new woman was being formed while the book was being written, but a new woman was being formed because I had been walking in the ways of the Lord, leading up to that process within itself. And so this past week, as I was minding my business in my kitchen, that thought came to my mind, and I thought about this individual that I worked with. And it, like I said, it tickled me, but it wasn't funny. It was more like that sarcastic, because it was like, well, did you get what you wanted, or did I stay the same? But the only reason that they wanted me to stay the same is because that version of me that they knew was the version of me that benefited them, and who I was becoming. They knew that it was only a matter of time before I went elsewhere. They knew that it was only a matter of time that the greatness that was within me was going to have run its course in that place of employment. And that was April. Friends, June, I got a little less than 2 months later, I got my instructions for my walking orders. I was given the word that it was time to leave that job, 10 years to be exact. Because June of 2025, I hit 10 years with the state of Texas. By June 9th or 10th, I got word. And I remember that Monday, the day after Father's Day, and I had prayed and I said, I said, God, give me to Monday. I got this on a Wednesday. Thursday, I start looking into some stuff. figuring out what I needed to do with my time and everything else. And by Monday, so I had time. I processed. I did what I needed to do in the earth to be smart. And by Monday, I put that notice in, and I did it early in the morning. And it wasn't even a full 2 weeks because I had some time left over. So maybe 10 days later, I was gone. And I have not regretted a moment. I walked out of there more excited than I think that I would have, but at the same time, my heart stung because I had grown to love the people. I'd grown to love those women that I worked with. I had become somebody in that office that I didn't think that I would become, but I knew in my spirit that the Lord was going to have me walk into something while I was still there. I knew that somehow, some way, my light was supposed to shine in a different way because that was going to be some sort of practice for me. And it was. I had relationships that I didn't think were going to be formed with people that I didn't think were going to be formed. And his light shined through me. And I knew that I had graduated because that had became an assignment. But today, I can't say that I miss it. And there have been times that I've wanted to go back and, visit, and I've gone here and there a couple of times, but one day it dawned on me and it was like, LaDeshia, you can't go back. You can't keep just because the doors are open, just because the doors are available. It's like it doesn't sit right. See, I used to have access to the back door. Now my code doesn't work. Now I would have to allow somebody to let me in, and people that seem like they would be happy to see me, or people that, maybe were happy to see me when I was there. It's like after being gone, you sense some stuff. Because the truth and the reality is I have more freedom and I didn't retire. I have more freedom than those who have been there way longer than I have. But because one, my trust in God, because I just believed that was not my place of retirement, because I know and I knew that he had more for me. But at the same time, I was also willing to do it. And I don't think that the issue is that others don't have the ability to do it. I think the truth of the matter is there are some who won't do it. And the Lord is not foolish. And because he knows this, they never get the instruction because they are not willing to trust him the way that it would be required to fully step out and just let him do. And so after December, after my birthday, or should I say for my birthday, that weekend, I got clear revelation for myself that I am really ready to honor this woman that I am. I'm ready to guard my heart, but not try to be overly protective. I'm ready to guard my heart, but at the same time, let my walls down, meaning I can walk in my vulnerability and I can say yes to one thing. And then I can turn around and say, you know what? I got to say no to that. Why? Because my peace is at the top of my pyramid. And if my peace is removed, everything else trickles down from there. Peace in my house, peace in my mind, peace in my heart, peace in my spirit, peace in my relationships. And so I also got to have that conversation with myself prematurely just to say, everybody can't date me. Everybody won't have access to me. And I am okay with places and the spaces that I truly don't desire to dwell anymore. And I'm going to say this, there are those places and spaces that I feel like when we're just growing in general, when we're progressing in life, quite naturally, sometimes we have a conversation. I don't know, everybody processes different, but I do. Mine comes when I'm driving or whatever. And I will get the knowledge and the awareness of these facts this new information that maybe I had not been aware of in my busyness. And it's dawned on me what times it's like, I don't feel how I used to feel when I talk to them. Or, these conversations don't hit. They don't do what they used to do. I don't get satisfaction out of this. Or then sometimes it's not that they don't hit like they did. There's some things where I can say it leaves me feeling sometimes disgusted. It leaves me feeling heavy. It feels like a burden. And I know somebody has to understand when you have had conversations with people and then you start to have those phone calls and then something in you, like when you talk to those people, it's like you get to the place where you don't even want to answer the phone no more. And everything on their part is the same. Conversations and, what they talk about, who y'all talk about, or who y'all used to talk about, all this different stuff. It's all the same on their end, but now there is an issue with you. And you don't know how to bring that up to them without causing some kind of issue. Well, that is a sign that you have outgrown either a situation, you have outgrown a person, you have outgrown a relationship. And I will tell you, we as the individual have to choose how we are going to maneuver. Sometimes you can have a conversation, but guess what? We know the people we deal with. Some people, it's going to be easy to have that conversation and say, hey, look, I'm moving in a different direction. The stuff we used to talk about, I don't even want to talk about it no more. The people we used to talk about, look, I don't want to talk about them. I don't want to gossip no more. I don't want to this. Some are going to honor that. Others going to think you being funny acting. They going to think you trying to be better than them and you goody two shoes and all these other different things that they may try to label you as. But that's where it comes to setting boundaries, friend. Boundaries are necessary. Boundaries are to help you. You set boundaries based off what you think is going to be necessary. And the first person that you got to set boundaries with is yourself, because we have to set boundaries and say, hey, look, if I put a boundary in place with such and such and they break it, what's going to be the consequence to that? And then with us, we got to stick to what we done already told ourselves we were going to do, because if not, we abuse ourselves first. And if somebody has an issue with your boundary simply because they don't get to dictate or have control over, you know, who and what they're going to be in your life anymore, that may be a place where you have to say, look, I can't keep sitting here. I got to get up. Either you're going to grow and you're going to mature, or you're going to honor and respect my wishes and my decisions with where I'm trying to progress to in life, or I got to get up out of this seat. And there's sometimes you already know it ain't even worth having the conversation. You just going to have to leave the seat empty. But friends, I wrote in my journal today and I said there are many empty seats that I have left in this past year alone, okay, just in 2025. But it started in 2023. Well, it probably started well before that, but you get what I mean. Where the toxic stuff was one thing, but it's when in my spirit I knew I had to start walking away. And it was like, wait a minute, because it was the people that I thought were going to be with me. Family members, friends, those that it's like all we did was talk about God. But he said, it's over with. Those seats will forever be empty unless he says he opens the door for me to go back. But they're going to be empty. They won't be vacant. And the difference is vacancies, you can feel a vacancy. If I leave a job, like when I left, they posted the position before I was out the door. But when something is left empty, it was mine. That seat was mine. And there is nobody else that can be me. And the same goes for your life. Nobody else can be you. So if there is a seat that you occupy nobody can take your seat. But if there is a seat that you leave under whatever circumstances, no one else can fill a seat that was once occupied by you. But I'm going to take it a step further right now because I need to say this for myself, because as the Lord has been preparing me for things, but there is one thing in particular that I know He's had to groom me for, and I've had to believe that I was worthy, that I was valuable, and all these different things, because I didn't understand why He would hold that posture, that place, that seat. Why me? I didn't feel worthy. And I told Him, it could be anybody. Why me? But the longer that we walked that out together, I understood, LaDeshia, what God has for you, it is for you. And the same goes for you, whoever is listening. What God has for you is for you. There may be a seat that is currently empty right now. It's not vacant, it's empty. And God has had it empty because He's waiting on you. And nobody else can have the seat that was predestined for you. So it could be that you're having to leave a lot of other empty seats because there is a greater seat, there is a greater position, and there is a greater posture that is waiting for you. And you can't get to the next best seat sitting in places just to please people because you don't want to hurt their feelings, because you want them to have closure, or you wish that they could understand. You don't have time to wait for them to understand. You don't have time for them to have closure. You don't have time for them to have peace. You don't have time for them to be okay with it, because the same God who is leading you, it's going to have to be the same God that they have to turn to with their heart's issues, because none of us are responsible for the conditions of another person's heart. We're not responsible. The Bible says for us to individually cast our cares and our weights and our anxieties and our fears, whatever we're holding, whatever worry we have. If we have an ought toward one another, we still have to take it. Now, we can go to a brother or sister, but if somebody has an ought with you because you're walking in obedience, you're not their problem. God is. Because the honest to God fact is, if we could tell people, I did not give myself that instruction. That was not my idea. But I obeyed it. And in my obedience, I reap His goodness. I reap His blessings. And so nobody can fill your seat, whether it's a seat that you have to get up from that you haven't, if it's a seat that you already got up from and you are beating yourself up, or really the enemy is beating you up because he is nothing but a liar, or there is a seat that is waiting for you. And maybe you don't feel like you're good enough or you're worthy for it. And I can tell you, none of us chose ourselves. None of us are good enough or worthy for the things that the Lord has for us. But if He said it, it's already been established in the earth. So if He said it, you might as well go take your rightful seat. Vashti, Queen Vashti, or Bashta, however you pronounce it, she honored herself when the king wanted her to come parade herself around with his friends after they got drunk. Had Queen Vashti not honored herself, Esther would have never gotten into the kingdom. And I can say this with that position, it wasn't necessarily an empty seat. It ended up making a vacancy. But let me say this, Queen Esther wasn't replacing Queen Vashti. Queen Esther was coming to sit in the seat that was for her, because Esther ended up having favor that I don't think the other queen had. But God put her in a position. He put her in a seat at a time such as that, because it was going to save the lives of the Israelite people. It was a whole people, and they just so happened to be God's chosen people. So Vashti was out of a seat, out of a position, because she valued herself, because she was a sensible woman, because she walked with wisdom, and because she did, she was removed. And I think it is a great reason that she was removed. She was removed because she got to keep her own dignity. But in that, it opened up a position for Esther to be able to be before the king at the right appointed time. So again, when we willingly move out of the places that the Lord needs us to move out of, it can allow for somebody else to take their necessary seat, maybe in those persons' lives, or to take their necessary seat in a different position or a role, because it's not always about replacing somebody. I don't think we can be replaced, because none of us are the same. None of us carry the same assignments, the same agenda. It's the same God, the same Holy Spirit. He gives the same anointing, but he doesn't use us all identically the same. Everybody has a different purpose, and there's a different plan, and the way his will is strategically made for our lives. So none of us can ever take the place or the position or the posture identically as somebody else. But even death proves that. When one dies, they don't willingly give up a seat or a position. It's just a natural occurrence of life. And depending on the position, somebody else is going to come. But bad things can happen. It can get tacky and messy if you expect for that new person to come in and fill somebody else's shoes, to be exactly what that last person was, to do everything the exact same way. There's going to be tension because you're asking and expecting this person to be something that they're not, to be somebody that they don't know how to be. Even if they watch this person and they try to mimic it, it would be unnatural. And so, family, tonight is about clear the seat. I don't know what your seat or many seats may be. I have been clearing seats for as long as I can remember, because I was having myself in some situations that I didn't need to be in. And after the last rough situation, I say with my marriage, I think that began a pattern of things being broken off. I really believe that the Lord used what he had at his disposal. And when I left that situation, I left with the intent of finding myself for the first time ever, because I understood that I'd never known LaDeshia. I understood that I never probably really valued or honored myself, at least not in the way that I thought I did. And on the healing journey, it has opened my eyes, and it has opened doors, and it has shown me and taught me things about myself. I needed to learn about myself more than I learned about anybody else. Well, Jesus, him first. But in putting my life in his hands, and putting my hands in his hands, and my heart in his hands, and releasing my mind and my control and all the different things that I have been through in these last 3, 4 years, I found my true, genuine, authentic self. I have found the woman that I love. I can say I am in love with me before any man can say that he's in love with me. I know what I like. I know what I don't like. And that doesn't mean that I know everything. Like, if you were to ask me, I can be in a situation and I'm in tune enough with myself to let my heart speak. My spirit speaks for me. The Holy Spirit speaks for me. And so when I feel something shift, I'm sensitive enough to myself. I've learned myself. I've also learned how much the Lord adores and he honors and he loves me. So at the same time, I have to honor myself. I have to honor who he honors. I have to love who he loves. And I have to listen so that I don't end up in a situation where I'm begging and pleading for the Lord to save or rescue me from mess that I didn't have to be in. So in that sense, I know myself. It doesn't take a whole lot because I stopped ignoring what I needed. I stopped ignoring what I wanted. I stopped ignoring putting other people above myself to feel some kind of sense of satisfactory, which is pride, ego, all these different things. All those things have begun to dwindle and die on the inside of me. And so it doesn't make me feel good to say, "Oh, I made them smile, but I went home crying." No, I'm just going to have to be okay knowing that I kept peace on the inside of me and also knowing I disappointed you at the same time. Because it is not our jobs to please other people. It's not our jobs to make somebody else happy. It's not our job to make their day or to give them peace. We're not the Prince of Peace. We got to fight for our peace too. And so I'm just grateful to know going forward doing life, I have had the time to learn myself, but I've also had the time to learn my Father, to learn how he's orchestrated me and all these different things. And I don't have time for distractions. And it's no longer an honor for somebody to want to be around me, or it's no longer an honor to be able to say, oh, I have some company or I have somebody to talk to. It's not an honor anymore because it's after that, what are you leaving behind? What are you going to leave in my, what kind of deposit are you going to make into me? Or what kind of withdrawal are you going to make? Did I want to make that withdrawal? Did I even have the capacity to make that withdrawal? Did you, pour into me anything or did you just take from me? Like, was it mutual in the withdrawing and the pouring? No. Okay. I don't think I want that relationship. I don't think I want that encounter. I don't think that I want to spend any time with you. And I believe that's the beautiful thing of me being pulled back and drawn back and spending this time by myself. And sometimes it's felt lonely, but it's also been a gift. And to be honest, I can say I'm not lonely. Every now and then I'll have that moment, I'm not praying for no best, well, I am praying for a best friend, but my life partner is my prayer that Lord, he and I have to be best friends. There are times with like walking into these new stages and seasons in life. I say, yes, there is somebody that I wish I could have to talk to physically in the natural, not just in the spirit, regarding the transitions and, the scary stuff, just to talk it over. But I'm also thankful that I get this time alone because I will have the testimony that it was nobody but God. That it was me and him when I really didn't know because I don't know what I'm doing. But I'm excited because as I produce different things and I see different things, and it was like, you did that. That I cried and told, I was like, I don't know what to do. And then here I am going. And it's like, at the end, it's like, baby, you produced that. When you got to be everybody on the team, marketing, digital, technical, all the different things. But I have the time and I have the capacity. And let me just, because I feel like I'm about to shift gears because I feel it. I feel like I want to cry a little bit. I have the capacity. Okay. And I'm not just talking about in the natural. I'm not talking about physical time. I'm trying not to cover up my face because y'all, she cute. Okay. That's cute. I like how I look right now too. My face just looks extra whoosh. I'm like, I have the capacity, like mentally. I have the capacity spiritually. Y'all, I have the capacity emotionally to show up for myself in ways that I would not have been able to show up if I was sitting in all those seats in everybody else's life. If I was still trying to be convenient, LaDeshia, if I was still trying to make sure that I was trying to make sure that everybody else was well, I wouldn't have the capacity. Let me break it down. I wouldn't have the capacity to be the mother that I am today. I wouldn't have the capacity to fight some of these spiritual battles that I have been fighting. I have had to fight because the enemy don't want you breaking chains. He doesn't want you to get better. He doesn't want you to get whole. He doesn't want you walking in obedience. But I have the capacity to build a website from scratch. I have the capacity to think about the different ideas and the techniques and what I want to do and pricing. And it's stressful, but guess what? I got the capacity to be stressed. Have the capacity to be confused because it's good confusion because I'm walking in a new territory that I've never been in before. But I have the capacity. I'm not working for nobody else. I don't have to give nobody 40 hours a week. I don't have to be pressed by somebody else telling me, hey, I need you to work on this report. But my mind is saying, but there's some other stuff that I wish that I could do for myself. Y'all, I have the capacity. I have the capacity to be the car rider mom of picking up and dropping off. I have the capacity. And if I'm honest, I have no idea how God is going to do anything. I have no idea if things are going to go smoothly or if I'm going to be stressed out tomorrow or next week. I have no idea. But what I do know is I have the capacity. I have the capacity to show up. I have the capacity that if now I need, or let me not say if I need, if I end up praying 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours in the middle of the day. And I say that because I'm not joking. I'm being serious. I have the capacity. There would be days that I would wonder, how long has my work laptop been black? Because I was on my living room floor, face down in the carpet and snot everywhere. How long had I been praying, warring, worshiping, praising, prophesying, calling things out in my heavenly language, just losing a sense of time and reality? Now I have the capacity. When people's names would come to me and I would drop down and I would pray, capacity. Needing to do impromptu fast, just knowing, okay, I gotta lay capacity. Even having the capacity to not have the strength to do anything, to have the capacity to rest as long as I needed, even when that meant I needed to figure out what rest meant. Capacity. Okay, 25 has been a year where I can say I've had the capacity to learn to be grounded. That is what I would have to sum up my last year as: grounding, stabilizing my foundation. And in being grounded and stabilized, I found safety and security. Lord has opened up doors and avenues that I have no idea about. And it's simply because I was willing to clear the seats. We sit in many seats, and we also have to vacate many seats. But when I say capacity, I am having to play so many parts. Like when you have that one worker in the company and they say, I have many seats, many roles. I get one paycheck, but I do roles for 3 people. Y'all, I have the capacity to sit in the seats. I get to be the CEO of I Am Healing Journey. I get to be the founder of what is now not only the She Ministry, but officially She Ministry nonprofit organization. And I have absolutely no idea what I'm doing. I really don't know. I have this She Speaks podcast. And there is a second business with my faith boxes that I will be making. And so here I am, this little 5'1" woman. I call myself a single wife because I am already a wife. I'm just single in the earth. But, when the Lord says it's time, it's time. And even today, I'll say I have the capacity to wait and to wait well. Okay. I had a serious moment at the end of the year because I told God just to see if he would do it. I was like, by New Year's Eve, I believe you can send him one day. Okay. I said all the way to the end, you can send him. But I knew it wouldn't come. And I cried. And I let him have it because reality is already new. But what I knew became reality. And I have had this conversation to say I have the capacity to wait because it's going to be an interesting journey. And I believe that the Lord is so good and so gracious to me that he's not allowing anybody else to be a part of this process for the simple fact that he wants me to get everything out of it. And I won't have to share this. This business adventure, this leaving my job and all the different things. And I say the doors that are going to quickly open for me, or really the doors that are already open, but I'm going to walk into them. This is what his grace looks like for a daughter, because nobody will be able to say, oh, a man did that. He helped you do that. Oh, it's like, do I want some help? Absolutely. These bills, absolutely. Being able to start a business and then knowing financially things won't be strenuous. Absolutely. But that's not how God saw fit. That's not what I got. That's not what I get. There are some who have that support and they have that security and that stability and that safety. But in my life, I've learned it's like, God, you really want to be everything, don't you? Like you really want to prove to me that you got me. And to me, that's a flex. To me, that's an honor. But also, okay, let me be honest 100%. It requires a different kind of level of trust and faith with him. Especially, I want to say as a woman, as a daughter, because I don't have anybody to lean. And that's another thing. When you done got up out of all them seats, when you turn around, see, it's vacant in my life too. It's not void, but there are vacancies. I'm going to say there's vacancies. There's vacancies because God, I don't want him to replace the seats of the people where I had to get up, because when I left them, that left an empty spot in my life too. It's double fold. And it's one thing to be on one end of the picture and say, oh, they left. They said they couldn't be here anymore. It's another thing when somebody wonders, well, why you ain't got nobody? And then you got to say, oh, I walked away from them all. Because now you look like a problem. Because it's not familiar. And the only example that I have related to back to 2023, when I knew in my spirit the Lord was unctioning me to take a step away from my relationship with my mom, all I had was Abraham. Father Abraham had many sons. It was like, yeah, Father Abraham. And there would be many times where I was like, dang, I wish I could talk to Abraham and be like, bro, what was it like for you? Because see, back then, they didn't have technology. See, Abram, the Lord told him to leave his father's family after his father had already died. Well, little did I know when I got that instruction. See, my mother was living. I had that conversation with her. It was not easy. But little did I know that 7 months later, she would be gone. And what I held inside of me that helped me was knowing I obeyed God. And the very week that I began to really press into him and say, hey, what is going to happen with this? Am I going back? There was a lot of stuff that had come up and I was working through it or, trying my best. And because of the circumstances with her health declining, I knew. I just didn't know how bad. that it had escalated so soon because I was out of the way. And that same week, I remember that's when I found out. It was like, no, she's transitioned. And I went back and I was like, I really wish that I could talk to Abram because he had to leave everything, everybody. And all he got to take was, if Sarah wouldn't have been his wife already because she was his sister, she would have been left too. But the only person that he took was Lot. And Lot cost him a lot. And so I kept that in the back of my mind. And that was 2024. That was July 2024. And fast forward, all these things happened. My book gets published and released, and coming into April, when I say having to have some seeds, it came to my siblings. And I had to have those conversations of letting them know, hey, I know I cannot hold this same position that I've been holding. One went kind of well, one didn't, but here I am, January 2026, and when I tell you, it has been hard. When I say clearing seats, it's hard because Abram walked away after his father died. He's given the instruction to leave. Your family's already grieving. Leave. But now they're having to grieve another. More than one, because you got Sarai, you got whatever he took with him. Now you got Lot because he felt some entitlement of responsibility. And now their family is grieving a family member that's still got all their breath in their body. Why? Because they say that they're going to follow this God that their people did not know. And here I am having these conversations that it's what I got to do. It's what I got to do. And it's just been a continuation of having to have those conversations, or some not even having a conversation at all. It's just things kind of dwindle. And I think after my mom's passing, stuff just naturally kind of set itself in place for me because I was already in this place, and there's healing, there's grieving, there's all kinds of things. But I say, clear the seat. Clear the seats. Clearing the seats are going to be necessary. Clearing the seats are going to be hard. Clearing the seats are going to be complicated. Clearing the seats may have you look like a villain in some people's eyes. But I'm here to tell you, it's okay. There is one seat that I know will never be vacant, that will never be void in my life. And if you are a believer, the same goes for you. And that is for the Lord Jesus Christ himself. There is a seat, like the only time that we won't know that he won't be found sitting at the right hand of the Father is when he comes back for us. Even Jesus had a seat waiting for him. But guess what? He had to leave his seat here on earth. He had to leave his seat being the Son of Man. He had to leave his seat walking with the disciples. He had to leave the seat of crying in the Garden of Gethsemane. He had to leave the seat of betrayal. He had to leave the seat of being on the cross of Golgotha. He had to leave the seat of being in that tomb for 3 days. He had to leave the seat of even going to hell to get the keys back. He had to leave the seat. And then he had to leave the seat after being here for 40 days after life was back in his body. He had to go to the very place that he says, I go to prepare a place for you that is with his Father in heaven, but it's a guarantee he coming back. So even Jesus is going to leave his seat that he's currently sitting in temporarily, but he's still going to leave it to come back to get us and say, hey, come take your final seat, which is in heaven. Come take the final seat, which is in glory for eternity. Come take your final seat, which is going to be found in the New Jerusalem. So changing seats is really a part of our call and our destiny. And I didn't see it like that. But I wouldn't have got this word if I didn't honor who I'm growing into. If I didn't honor who I've grown to be. And so I just want to encourage you and say, look, clear the seats as fast as necessary, as slow as necessary. But you friend, you don't get to make the pace decision, okay? Your growth does. So the way that you grow, the more that you grow, the more that you mature, and then I'll say this, don't be trying to do stuff prematurely because it's going to feel unnatural. And then you're going to be out here looking foolish. Let things happen in their necessary timing. It was maybe 3 years that I knew when I said that statement that night to my mom, and I was like, I think they only mad because they know if I needed to, I'd block them too. People will show you things without, I just be seeing stuff. But the truth of the matter is it's already there. And you don't have to feel bad, because if we could be honest, for those of us who know, to say it's not personal. Like, it's not personal between me and you, but it's personal between me and me. It's personal because let me put it like this. If I could talk to somebody and say, I didn't leave you to leave you. I just left the version of me that was showing up in the rooms and the spaces with you. If I could be honest, I would say, I didn't outgrow you. I outgrew me. I outgrew that version of who I was. I no longer liked the version of me that was able to be in the room with you. So when I grew up, it affected the downgraded version. When I upgraded, it affected the less mature version of me. I would have to say that, yes, I did. I outgrew gossip. I would have to say that, yes, I outgrew pettiness. I outgrew unforgiveness, but I grew into love. I grew to a place that I really did want to pray for my enemies. I would have to say that I grew to a point that I realized that I didn't want to keep being that old stinking woman that I was. I didn't like my old mind frame. That the more that I got into that word, and the more that I read, and the more that I prayed, stuff start coming out of me, but stuff start getting put in me. And the toxic and the sewage that I had on repeat, and it was on cycle, and it was a system. The more that I began to give myself to the Lord and consecrate and lay things down, I began to get up as a brand new being. And after so long, I could no longer relate to the old girl who used to sit in that seat. So I did the only thing that I knew to do. I got up, I went northward, and I never had the intent to turn around. So do you want to know how I know if people will make it back into my life? They'll have to get up out of their own seats. They're going to have to do the work, and they're going to have to grow. And maybe, just maybe, I'll see them again, but I know it'll never be over yonder on that side. So babes, that's what I got for you. I want to say tonight, because I don't know what time it is that I'm recording this video. That's my word. In 2026, I want you to know that you have cleared some necessary seats. That by the time you get to the end of the year in December, by the time you see January 2027, if the Lord has not come back yet or called us home, I want you to have evidence within yourself that you got up, you walked, and you went and you sat in some of those new seats that the Lord has had for you. And so I love y'all. And until next time. Hey family, thanks once again for joining me for this episode. Until next time.